Hi everyone and welcome. I am Brant Kruger. I'm the Director of Video and Production Technology for metroConnections, and I would like to welcome you to Video Recording of Meetings, How to Avoid Post-Event Trauma and Save Money. This is what we hope is going to be part of a series of webinars on technology and other topics that will hopefully be of interest to event planners, meeting planners, conference organizers, and really anybody with an interest and an eye on technology and events. In general, we've noticed an upswing in the amount of recording of events that we're doing, both meetings and events. I'd say 5 years ago, it was maybe 1 out of every 10 meetings was being recorded, and easily that has switched to 9 out of 10 of every meeting that we're doing is being recorded. What we have noticed, though, is that the use of the footage has changed. It's starting to trend towards more immediate digital use of the footage, being uploaded to video sites such as YouTube or Vimeo, or in turn posted to social media such as Facebook and Twitter. They also might be turning it around internally for employees who were unable to attend the meeting, or for HR purposes such as a new hire video. And while these are great marketing and HR tools, the downside is that recording, if not made part of the planning process, can be a source of unexpected expense, unexpected delays, and when it comes to social media, we all know that we want to keep things fresh and relevant, so the longer it sits around is going to be a problem. And it can cause stress that if, as really any unexpected expense or delay can happen, it's one more thing you have to worry about when you thought you were already done with the event. Now all of a sudden you have to deal with formats and footage and hard drives. So it's important to make it part of the planning process. Now, in order to help you out with that, we've kind of come up with the different levels of recording at an event. And these levels are going to help you ask the right questions and make sure that you get the right gear. So let's talk a little bit about these different levels of recording. The levels of recording are based on how the footage is going to be used after the event. So it's important to have an honest discussion with whoever is going to be receiving the footage before the event about how they're going to be using it. You want to get this discussion going before the event during the planning process so that you're able to properly set the expectations of whoever's going to receive that footage. And you'll be able to tell them how much is it going to cost, when are they going to get it, and what format are they going to get it in. Once you're able to do that in the planning process, it'll help reduce the amount of unexpected surprises you're going to get afterwards. So let's take a look at the first level of recording. The first level is level 0, and that's basically no recording at all. Frankly, this doesn't happen very much anymore on the larger events. Most of the time that we're seeing this, it's when you're dealing with breakout sessions or groups under 50 where it would feel awkward to have a camera in the room. So all of the medium-sized groups, larger groups, definitely groups of over 100, we're hardly ever seeing no recording whatsoever, because chances are somebody's going to want it even if they didn't ask for it. So let's say you've even done your due diligence, you've asked around, nope, we don't need it to get it recording, and you've gone ahead and green-lighted the AV provider, nope, we don't need anything to record. You might still want to just check with them and say, okay, is there any chance that the camera that you've got there is going to have an onboard tape deck or an onboard hard drive that you could be recording it just in case? We don't think we're going to need it, but maybe you could record it just in case. And if so, would you go ahead and include that in the price, or maybe just a minimal upcharge just in case? Because the number of times where we've been in a position where there was no recording asked for, no recording given, and then afterwards somebody came and said, so can we get the recording of that? Sorry, no. And that's a difficult position to be in, because a lot of times when people see a camera in the room, they just expect that it's being recorded. The next level is probably the more common level, and that is we want to get it recorded, but honestly, it's probably just going to get thrown in a box somewhere. It's going to get put up on a shelf or in somebody's filing cabinet. Somebody just wants it for archives, and it's incredibly unlikely that anybody's going to ever look at it. It's just going to go in a box, never to be seen again. You have a couple options if this is the likely scenario, and that's going to be an onboard camera record. Sometimes just the camera is known as an ISO record, as for isolated. So the camera record or ISO record, if it's a possibility, your cheapest option is going to be, again, that on-camera storage, and that's either going to be a tape, That's going to be mainly your older cameras, still really good, high-quality cameras, but they're just going to be a little bit older. And those tapes are going to be in what we call professional formats. And that's something we're going to talk about a little bit more later, but just remember that the tape is going to be a professional format. Otherwise, if it's a newer camera, a prosumer camera, what we like to call that, that's either a low-level professional camera or a high-level consumer camera, they're going to have onboard hard drive or flash storage. The funny thing is that the real professional cameras, like the kind that you would use for television or big, really large events, long throw lenses, they don't have any kind of onboard storage at all because they're really not meant for it. They're designed to just be sending that video feed someplace else to be captured or displayed. So the really professional cameras aren't going to have that as an option. So then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to record to a hard drive. And that's going to be some additional equipment or cost. And if there is a hard drive, that is going to start to open up some more possibilities for you. So if you're already having to go down that road, this gives you the option of getting what's called a program feed record. And that's going to be basically everything that's displayed on the main screen in the room. So that's going to be the iMag, so the presenter up there on camera, on the screen, bouncing back and forth between their presentation perhaps. They've got PowerPoint or video, everything that's going to the main screen in the room. Sometimes this is called a program record or possibly a line cut. It depends on your AV company or your production company and what background they come from. Usually when you'll hear a line cut, it's someone who comes from a television background. Be careful with this term because sometimes that means only cameras, and some people will use it interchangeably with program feed. We find it's better to use the term program feed and just explain it if somebody doesn't understand what that means. It's everything displayed on the main screen. Just to recap a little bit, what we've added now to our equipment costs, besides the actual camera itself in the room, is going to be possibly a tape charge. So if you are using the tapes on board the camera, you may see a tape charge on your AV. That's literally how much the tapes cost. And then afterwards you'll be handed the tapes and they go in a box somewhere. If you're doing an ISO feed or a program feed to a dedicated recorder, you're going to add the actual rental of the recorder itself. In addition to that, you're also going to need some way for the AV company or the production company to get you the footage afterwards. And that's going to be a hard drive. So just a standard digital off-the-shelf hard drive, and they will copy that information from the recorder onto that drive and hand it to you. Once again, you can go then and put it on a shelf. But that's kind of the digital equivalent of being handed the tapes like we used to do back in the day. Here's a tip. Provide your own hard drive, and you're going to save yourself some money. Most AV companies will just kind of build into the price the cost of the hard drive to hand you the footage, but you can usually ask, hey, can I bring my own? If you are going to do that, make sure it's big enough for the duration of your event. Make sure it's fast enough. We want it to be a more recent hard drive, not something you dug out of a closet somewhere. We want it to be a USB 3 or FireWire 800 hard drive. And we want to make sure, again, that it is big enough. I know that was the first one, but that's why it's worth repeating. Make sure it's big enough because video, especially high-definition video, is huge, massively huge files. So find out, get an estimate from your production company how large that drive's going to need to be, and then you'll be able to bring your own. Save yourself a couple of dollars. Level 2. That's, we might use it someday, or at the very least, we're probably going to watch it. This is kind of right in the middle. It's a tricky one because it's you need to start taking into some things into account that you know it's going to be watched someday. It's not just going to get thrown in a box. Now, 5 years ago, when the dominant media was tape, many planners would get caught off guard. Remember I said it was a pro tape. And by that I mean it's not just a VHS tape like a camcorder from the 1980s. That's going to be a professional grade of tape like DV cam, beta cam, possibly HDV, which some prosumer camcorders used. But either way, it's going to be a tape that you're not going to be able to just pop in a deck. Chances are you don't have a Betacam deck sitting around your office somewhere. So if you've been handed the tapes because somebody decided to go into that shelf and pull it off the shelf or pull it out of the box or the file cabinet, if you've been handed those tapes, they do need to be converted into something before you can view them. And then you're going to need to get them transferred to a DVD or perhaps converted to a WMV or a QuickTime. And the way that you're going to do that is you're going to try and find a third party, whether that's an actual edit house, or there will actually be kind of these companies. There's at least one in every major city where they will do file conversion, usually under the guise of VHS to DVD. So you're digging out at your attic and you find the VHS tapes from your home movies and you want to convert them to DVD. These types of houses will usually be able to handle the conversion from these pro-grade formats as well. And there's going to be a moderate fee involved in that, and you're going to want to have them convert it to something that you're going to be able to see, whether that's a WMV or an AVI or a QuickTime H.264, but you're definitely going to get it converted off the tape. If you're going to be handing it over to an editor, have them convert it to another professional digital format that they're going to be able to use for editing and keep it in high quality. Now, the good news is that, today we're using tapes less and less, but you're not in the clear. One of the biggest mistakes that planners and marketing people do is to assume that, well, it's digital, so therefore I'll just be able to take it back to my office and plug it in and be able to bring it right up and watch the show. Well, just like the tapes, we're going to professional grade tapes. These recorders that are recording digitally are recording HD footage at an incredible rate, really fast speeds and really high quality. So these are professional level recorders, and they're recording using professional level formats. You may have heard the term codec being thrown around. So that professional format, the codec, is what encodes the video so that it can be played back. And these are not codecs that you're going to be able to just have sitting on your Windows machine back at the office. It's a codecs like ProRes 422, ProRes 4444. These are professional level codecs that unless you have Final Cut Pro or an Avid machine or even some of the Adobe products, you're not, unless you have one of those, you're not going to be able to watch them. So once again, it's going to need to be converted. So we're back to having to go and ask your AV vendor or your production company to include a basic transfer to DVD afterwards, or maybe into a digital format like M4V. That's a QuickTime format. And you're going to need to build that into the price. They might be able to throw it in for free, but chances are there's going to be an additional charge for that. The other option, like I said before, is to go to one of those third-party companies and have them convert the raw footage into something more consumer-friendly. Those same tape duplication companies should be able to handle that as well. Okay, so level 3. Level 3 is we're definitely going to use them at some point, and probably soon. So it might be in a couple of weeks, it might be in a month, but this footage is definitely for a specific purpose. We're going to record it because we know we're going to use it. We're going to release it internally, or we're going to turn it around and release it externally as a marketing piece. So now's the time that we start to think about maybe stepping it up a notch. This is when you're going to want to seriously consider handing it over to a professional editor, either an external video editing house, or like us, a production company that handles video editing and does video editing in-house. The nice thing is that stepping up from the level 2 to the level 3 doesn't necessarily change much on your end, because you'll be able to hand those professional tapes or that hard drive full of professional level recordings directly over to them, and they'll be able to handle it. Then you're not going to need to get it pre-converted before you give it to them. You'll just be able to handle it over to them, and then they'll be able to provide you with time-encoded versions so that you can go through and say, cut it from this point to this point to that point. Maybe you've seen DVD trailers where they've got the time code running across the bottom. That's what that's for setting in and out edit points. And they'll provide that to you in a format that you can use. Now, if you're dead set on doing it in-house, you want to try and do it yourself, then you're going to have to go back to having the footage converted by someone else, either your AV or production company or a third party. And remember that big mistake from before. Before you're going to be able to watch it or do anything with it, you will have to have it converted, and you're probably going to have to pay someone to do it. So while you're already at this point and you know you're going to have to use it later, now's the time to start considering some other options, and these are all going to start adding to your budget cost, of course, so make sure it's in the budget, and it depends on how professional of an output that you're trying to get. So now would be the time to consider maybe getting both an ISO record and a program feed. What this is going to do is it's going to allow you for more control in the edit bay later. And it gives you the ability to edit with hindsight. Maybe in the show live, depending on how much rehearsal you've had. Perhaps the director of the show may have had the screens in PowerPoint instead of on the camera when your speaker, your CEO, when she made a really great point and made a really meaningful and impressive messaging moment for them. Unfortunately, it was on the PowerPoint and the screen, and that would have been recorded directly to the program feed. Now, this gives you the ability to go back and fix it in post. If you've got both of those feeds, you could switch away from the program feed that has the PowerPoint onto the ISO feed of the speaker and really show exactly the moments that you want to be able to show on camera versus in the PowerPoint. One of the other tips of doing it this way, by having that second feed, having an ISO plus a program feed, is that actually you might wind up saving money in the long run depending on how complicated your edit is. So yes, there is going to be some additional equipment because you're going to have two recording decks, one deck recording the ISO feed and one deck recording the program feed. But in the end, in the edit suite, it's going to save you time and therefore money, because if you only have the ISO feed, the editor is going to have to go through and manually watch it, manually insert the PowerPoint slides, basically in real time. They're going to have to kind of look at the speaker, get cues for when they're switching slides, listen to what they're saying. But if you have the program feed, you have a reference that you can use for just skimming through and figure out when they change their slides, throw in all the slides, then kind of go back and tweak it to make sure, again, that you're showing the right things on the screen at the right time. This is also a great time to start considering things like adding a second camera. It's going to give you even more flexibility in the edit bay because then you could have the close-up versus the far-away shot, those kind of cutaway shots during an award presentation where you've got that close-up shot of the people shaking hands and then the other camera is resetting to get the next person that's on their way up to the stage, and you can cut back and forth between those both live and record them for later use. This is again going to add another recording deck if you want to add that in. So you could conceivably be up to 3 different recordings at this point. This is a good time to remember that tip on providing your own hard drive when I said make sure it is big and make sure it is fast, because now you're talking about 3 records and 3 times the HD footage that's going to need to get transferred at the end of the event. So fast and big as far as the hard drive goes if you are providing it. So on to level 4. Level 4 is essentially the same as level 3, except we need it tomorrow, or at the very least we need it first thing Monday morning after the event. This is where things can really get sticky if you didn't plan ahead, because the natural instinct as we finished the event is a great big exhale. We can all take 3 days off and spend some time with our families and forget about it. Not when you have to turn around the video by the first thing Monday afterwards. So if you haven't planned ahead, the biggest gotcha when life was tape-based, and if you happen to run across one of these tape-based systems, you have to watch out for this, is that tape-based solutions require real-time import. That is to say, in order to get them off the tape and into something digital that we can use, it's going to take the actual time that it took to record it. So if you're talking about like we just were, where you've got a program feed, an ISO for camera 1 and an ISO for camera 2, or let's just even say just a program feed and an ISO, and your program is 3 days with 6 hours of general sessions a day, those 2 feeds are going to equal 36 hours just to import the footage before you can even do anything with it. That's before converting it, before editing it. Fortunately, thank goodness this is something that's going away, and we're seeing less and less tape-based systems. So that's really going to start to speed up the process. So that's another tip for you. If it's at all possible, try and avoid tape-based solutions if you're in a hurry. So go to hard drive recorders because they're going to go much faster and they're going to allow you to turn the footage around in a much shorter amount of time. But do keep in mind, they're faster, but it still takes a long time to copy those files off of it. These are professional level recorders that belong to the AV company or to the rental company, and you need to get that footage copied onto your drive or a drive that they provide. They're not just going to hand you the drives straight out of the gate. You're going to have to copy those files off of the professional recorder onto a more off-the-shelf type of hard drive. And these are multi-gigabyte files, giant high-definition files. And they're still going to need to be converted by somebody, but you got to get them off the recorders onto a hard drive, and that's going to take time. I mean, if you think it takes a long time to copy a complicated PowerPoint presentation onto a USB stick, imagine 6 hours of high-definition footage copying onto a hard drive. So what we can do to start to help speed that up even more is that you could start converting them a little bit faster. You can start doing it overnight. So it's important to communicate this short timeline to your AV company, to your crew on site there. Let them know this needs to be turned around quickly. And what they'll be able to do is, kind of the standard operating procedure is to copy everything after the show. So once everything's done, they copy everything off the professional level recorders onto your hard drive, and kind of all at once at the end of the show. But if they know in advance you're going to need to turn around the footage quickly, they could start doing this overnight. So after the first day is done, they could start copying the files right over to the hard drive, and after the second day is done, do the same. And then at the end of the show, all you have to do is copy the last day of footage and get that off to your editor. The other thing that you can do is to actually hire an editor to come out on site and start doing the conversion process, start doing the editing process on site as you go. We're starting to see this take off more and more as people literally want to turn around the footage from the first day by the second day. So we'll see the editor get handed the footage from the first day of general sessions at 5 o'clock at night, go back, edit it, turn around, and it gets uploaded to the internal site overnight or first thing in the morning. If you are going to do that, you need to make sure you get those costs in advance, because there may be rush charges, rush rates. There may be weekend charges involved if somebody has to come in and start doing conversion and editing over the weekend. And then obviously if you have someone on site there with you, you're going to need potentially a hotel room for them, or at the very least a place for them to just set up their equipment and work on things, and obviously their hourly rates as well. So at this point, you should have enough information to get started. You should be able to ask the right questions. When do I need it? What format do I need it in? How big of a hard drive do I need? But the thing that we want you to take away is you want to make sure you match your end goal with your budgeting process, with your actual planning process. So what am I really going to use this footage for after the event? And then I can build that into my budgeting process of, okay, I know I'm going to need a camera. I know I'm going to need a hard drive recorder. I know I'm going to need a hard drive. We should probably get the program feed and the ISO while you're still in the planning process. So be sure and start those discussions well before your event, and ideally before your equipment budget is finalized. And also, you should realize, as you probably have as we've gone through there, with each one of these level increases, the cost of equipment, the file conversion, and the editing expenses is likely to go up. In fact, it almost certainly is going to go up the more you add that professional touch, add those extra cameras, add those extra recorders. And again, that's all depending on the quality of the output you're trying to create after the event. All right, well, before we go, I want to give you just a real quick overview on the services that metroConnections provides. This is the part where, if they don't let me play with the big boy toys and put all this information out for you. I promise I'll keep it quick. The best thing is to get on our mailing list. I promise it's not very intrusive. You can find out about webinars like these. We are intending to make this a series, probably one a month or so. And the easiest way to get on the mailing list is to simply stop by www.metroconnections.com. Check out our website while you're there. Look around. You'll notice our 4 main service centers. You'll find out more about metroConnections. We've been around for 28 years. We're a nationally recognized DMC, and we provide our services all over the world. You can see our 4 service centers there: conference services, event services, production services, and transportation services. The conference services folks over there, they do full meeting management, site and venue selection, attendee registration, custom website website apps. I just saw the app out on an event the other night. It looks fantastic. The event side, full event planning, management services. We can do your team building events, decor, furniture, and one of the best parts I think we bring to the events is that we have our own custom design shop. So if we don't already have it in stock, we can make it for you. On the production services side, that's where I like to hang out. We've got full-scale meeting production, creative staging and design, video editing, video creation, not only the post-edits afterwards like what we're talking about today, but also opening videos and happy face shows at the end of the conference, and as well as organizing and taking care of all of your audio-visual needs. And then last but not least, our transportation services service center. The national transportation management that these guys pull off is amazing. Scheduling, on-site coordination, and then local destination management, not only here in Minneapolis, but with partners all around the world. And the part that I really love is looking at our client list. I am consistently blown away by the quality of clients that I get to work with on a daily basis. It just blows my mind when I look at the retail and the consumer and the sports teams and technology and healthcare, the associations, the finance, the insurance companies, the services and manufacturing. It really does just blow my mind every time I look at this client list. So I want to thank you all very much for checking out this webinar. If you have any more questions, don't hesitate to contact me. You can find me at metroConnections.com. You can send me an email at bkruger@metroconnections.com. Feel free to call me, reach out to me on Twitter. Honestly, if you have any technology questions or event technology questions or conundrums you want to throw my way, please feel free. You won't be a bother, and I'll get back to you as soon as I'm able. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope to see you again soon.